All right, what's going on, y'all? So today we're going to talk about how modern relationship advice is absolutely garbage. All the advice you see out there right now, so much of the therapy, while well-intentioned, is actually setting people up for more pain, more suffering, and to never be able to have a long-term, healthy, stable relationship. And it's causing people to be lonelier than ever and stay lonely for the rest of their lives. We see this with what's going on with society. You know, divorce rates are at an all-time high. Morgan Stanley recently forecasted that by the year 2030, 45% of women between the ages of 25 and 44 will be forever single. And we see this with, the movement, the men going their own way, where men are deciding not to date women anymore because they don't feel satisfied by women. They feel like women don't understand them and that modern women aren't worth dating. We see this with women essentially doing the same thing. We see this with dating apps, and that can be a whole separate video of modern dating with the apps and everything. What it's doing with having endless options and just easily being able to swipe on to the next one. But essentially, we're seeing that marriages are absolutely suffering now, and the rates of marriages are going down. The rates of divorce is going up. It's a massive milestone now just to see a 10-year anniversary, let alone a 50-year anniversary. And so today we're going to hone in on romantic relationships. This is very applicable as well to, any relationship you have, whether that be with your parents, how people are handling relationships with their parents and vice versa, the relationships with their siblings, co-workers, friends, all of that. This is applicable to all of it, what I'm going to talk about today, but we're going to hone in on marriages or romantic relationships and all that, since one, that's usually the most intimate relationship we have in our life, which so many of us are seeking. But then two, what the advice and therapy that's being thrown out there now, how that's directly hurting that. So, we are now, so hyper aware in our society through, all the therapy and advice of all this, of, all our childhood trauma or relationship trauma, the neglect we've had, or any abuse, whether that's emotional, physical, all of this. We're so hyper aware of that. And we've been taught to, be aware of it and then grow out of our own unhealthy patterns, how those manifest in relationships. Don't let your trauma, manifest emotionally. We do all this self-growth work, but with that, we now become hyper fixated on anybody else's red flag, that we're almost subconsciously or consciously looking for a perfect partner that's already done this immense level of work, and it'll be just an easy relationship. And guys, there's unicorns out there, but two people, they're going to be different people. They're going to have had different traumas, different places of neglect, different triggers, all of that even if both people are really well grown, they've done a lot of work on themselves, they're really aware of, past hurts and grown through those, there's still going to be blind spots for each person. And they're going to come up in relationships, and it's going to be tough. What we've been taught now is that at the first sign of any uncomfortability, we are supposed to tuck tail and run. We see this with everything within our society now. Everybody wants, an easy, comfortable life. That's why, I think so many people now are gravitating to doing these hard physical challenges, like, running, a marathon or even an ultra marathon, or doing something hard physically, or, we can see this with the opposite with, say, obesity and people having, no wherewithal to just stick to a diet for a few days. Everybody wants the easy, comfortable life, and any bit of uncomfortability they run from. But we know, just like with someone running an ultra marathon or doing some hard physical challenge, that it's in that suffering, it's in that pain, it's in that hard time, that's where the growth happens. And it's the same thing with a relationship. When you go into those hard times in a relationship where maybe you feel like your cups aren't being filled, maybe you feel like, this person's just not pouring into me. So first off, you need to look at that person. Maybe they're going through something. Maybe your spouse is going through something. Maybe you don't know what's really going on with them, or maybe they're just so caught up in their own life. Maybe they're caught up in a current sin. The point is it's not all about us. We have been taught now, and this is the point with the the advice and the therapy that's been thrown out for so long now, it's very kind of leaning selfish and narcissistic, that we have now become so hyper aware of not accepting any red flag, any abuse, any betrayal, any neglect, that if we are not being fed and we are not, 100% of the time being happy in a relationship, that, that person's not right for me. I need to just go ahead and move on. And guys, this is hurting so many people. And because of this mentality, so many people are setting themselves up to be lonely forever. We can even take this a step further, that, we see this with, frankly, what if someone slips up and makes a mistake? What if someone makes a big mistake, like betraying your trust? What if someone cheats on you? Those have been taught, ingrained in us, that those are unacceptable. And yes, they are unacceptable in being able to maintain trust, at the time maintain, healthy relationship, all of that. But that doesn't mean it's unacceptable in the sense that, first sign of anything wrong, first sign of me being hurt, I'm going to go ahead and tuck tail and run. In the Bible, we're taught, Christ was asked, in Mark 10 on, about, Moses making the concessions for divorce, where if someone commits adultery, there's a couple concessions for divorce. And so the reality is, when Christ is talking about this, he's saying these concessions apply, but only because of the hardness of our hearts. Essentially what he says is, in an ideal world, in a Christ-like world, even through those pains, even through those betrayals, you'd still go ahead and decide to stay in that relationship, and you'd forgive. Forgiveness is everything here, guys. So Mark 10:5, and Jesus answered and said to them, because of the hardness of your heart, he wrote you this precept, but from the beginning of the creation, God made them male and female. For this reason, a man shall leave his father and mother and shall be joined to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh. So then they are no longer two, but one flesh. Therefore, what God has joined together, let no man separate. Meaning, even through betrayal, even through maybe some emotional abuse, maybe through you not feeling like you're having your cups filled all the time, maybe through some neglect, we should be there for other people. No one here is perfect. And how could we expect a partner to stay with us, if we're battling something? Let's say we are currently battling a sin. Wouldn't we want someone to love us enough that through our lowest of low, they would, maybe they take a couple punches for us that way and love us through it? That way we can grow. We should do the same. And right now, everyone has the mentality of, it has to be perfect all the time. I can never be hurt. And guys, because of that, relationships, marriages are failing. St. John Chrysostom, in his homilies on marriage and family life, highly suggest you listen to these or read this. St. John Chrysostom talks about how, even if someone commits adultery, even if someone does some massive betrayal, even if someone is far from God, someone's dealing with sin, how much better would it be to actually stay in that marriage and you still focus on seeking God? You focus on your own salvation and sanctification. What he says is, you focusing on your own sanctification, your partner, your spouse will be sanctified in the process. It's just like if you're living with someone that, isn't currently seeking after God, if you just focus on your own walk with God, through your own prayers, through, your constant forgiveness and only showing them Christ-like love, this is where now they can eventually, be sanctified in the process and seek out God for themselves in the process, become closer to God in the process, because you were focused on that, because you showed them forgiveness. We need to stop having such a selfish mentality around relationships. All the current advice and therapy out there is so focused on just ourselves being happy all the time. And it's not biblical. Jesus said, don't forgive them 7 times, forgive them 70 times 7. Essentially, he's making the point, constantly forgive, endless supply of forgiveness. Now, I need to make the point here, guys. I'm not saying to just, accept outright abuse. You know, if you're being physically abused, emotionally abused, you know, you're constantly being betrayed, and that person isn't taking accountability at all. You know, they're not willing to listen to you at all. There's no level of repentance there. You know, I'm not saying to just accept that abuse for the rest of your life. That's not what I'm saying here. That can actually cause more harm than good, even for your own sanctification and all this, and your own walk with God. But, you know, outside of someone taking no accountability, you know, if someone hurts you and they are repentant, first off, we are called to forgive. You know, if we don't forgive, you know, someone here on earth, you know, our God in heaven won't forgive us. You know, we have to forgive. That's a non-negotiable. Even if someone hurts us, even if someone is not accountable or repentant, we still forgive. Whether we keep them in our lives or not, you know, is up to the level of accountability and all that. But the point is, the whole focus shouldn't be on just the easy, perfect, always happy relationship. You know, what happens is if you go ahead and you focus on the constant forgiveness, the constant love, if your partner is not the perfect partner right now, but they show a level of wanting to grow and all that, what's going to happen in the process of you taking some punches, or the time where you might be hurting, guys, it's in those uncomfortable times that's where growth happens. So this is where, just like someone training for an ultra marathon has extreme physical growth and even mental growth out of that, this is where you're going to have extreme emotional and relationship growth. You're going to be able to you know, learn how you react even better, and fine tune and even make your reactions even healthier. You're going to grow in your walk with God. If you're hurt, and instead of lashing back out or getting angry, and you go to prayer, go to God, you're going to grow in that way, and it's going to help your partner, because they are going to only experience forgiveness and growth and love in the process. And now what's going to happen is, guys, this is going to be cyclical. You know, my wife and I have gone through many phases of these, to where you know, I might be struggling with something and she's having to walk with me through it, or she might be struggling with something and I have to, you know, walk with her in something. And what happens is you constantly are both leveling each other up, and in the process, the relationship is getting even more solid and healthier in the process. And you both end up loving each other more in the process as well. This is how healthy, beautiful relationships that last a long time happen. It's, you know, constantly being, you know, recognizing and being emotionally available and vulnerable, and, you know, being willing to look and see, hey, I'm not treating my partner right here, but I want to grow and work on this, and vice versa. And even if they don't recognize it right in that second, still be there for them. Don't just tuck your tail and run, like what all the relationship advice is out there right now. You know, the whole reality, guys, is that marriage is holy, and the devil is going to come and attack your marriage. He's going to expose your weaknesses, your spouse's weaknesses. You know, popular saying out there, I'm going to butcher this, but, you know, if everything is going easy in your life, you might want to be cautious on why are the demons not attacking you.
It says if you're not being troubled by the devil, you're going in the same direction.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You know, if you are getting closer to God, if your marriage is becoming more holy and you both are seeking after God, if the demons aren't attacking your marriage, or attacking you, that's a sign you need to look and see, what path am I really on here? Am I getting closer to God? Am I serving God? Because, you know, we are called to carry our cross. You know, if we are not bearing that cross, and everything just is always, you know, fine and dandy and perfect, guys, that's not what's shown in a Christian walk. You know, we even should be proud of the crosses we bear, you know, or carry. You know, our cross that we bear, that's what sanctifies us. That's where the level of growth is. It's going through those hard times. So even if your cups aren't being filled in your relationship at this current time, even if you go through some level of betrayal, you know, you feel like your trust has been broken, or whatever, name it, some hard time with your relationship, you see a red flag with a partner, if you've committed to them and y'all are married, you know, this could be your cross to bear at this moment. And this is going to lead to growth, not only on this plane, physically, mentally, spiritually, relationally, but it's also going to lead to spiritual fruits as well. You're going to get closer to God in the process. You know, take those hardships to God go to prayer, pray for your spouse. The point of this video is, rather than listening to all the advice and therapy out there of everything so self-focused of I've got to be perfectly happy all the time. If I've done the growth work, then the other person has to be perfectly grown as well. Guys, if you've done all the growth work, you still haven't done all the growth work. You're going to be growing until the day you die. The point is don't just give up as soon as you see a red flag or something is unacceptable for you, or you're not going to have any relationship at all. All the beautiful marriages you see that last 50 years plus, if you listen to any one of these people talk, they talk about some really, really hard times in marriage, but they stayed together. They stayed together, and they both fed each other. They both forgave each other. Always focus on forgiveness and love. And with that, always focus on your walk with God. Your walk with God, if that is what you aim at, and you aim at, even if you're hurt, you only have love and forgiveness out of it. That's where your spouse is going to be sanctified in the process. They're going to grow, and then you're going to have times of, you need to be able to lean on them and their forgiveness and love. And this is where everything gets more beautiful and solidified in the process. Whole point of this video, don't be fragile like what so much of society is now, where you can't accept any level of uncomfortability, you run, because I'm telling you guys, loneliness will suck way worse than, dealing with some uncomfortabilities. And I see, so many men now especially are, well, I don't want to put up with, the craziness of a woman. Well, guys, I don't know what to tell you. That, a female they operate different than us men, but they're beautiful. And you just have to learn how to temper yourself, but stay true to yourself, but walk with God, and they will be sanctified in the process. It's beautiful to watch it happen. And then vice versa, guys. A lot of us are rough around the edges, and we have a lot of blind spots that we don't know of. And a lot of times it takes a marriage, it takes a woman to key us into what those are too. Do your best to focus on your own walk with God. Forgiveness is a non-negotiable, guys. We have to forgive. If we don't forgive here on earth, Father in heaven won't forgive us. We have to forgive. It's a non-negotiable. So always forgive, and then do your absolute best to work on your own growth, and then work on your relationship with God, your own sanctification. Your spouse will be sanctified in the process. But I hope this was some encouragement to y'all. If it was, please go ahead and smash the like button, hit subscribe if you haven't already. Leave any comments or questions down below. All glory to God. God bless you, and have a great rest of your day.